Yeah, ready.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody,
Shabbat Shalom, Judith.
and welcome to a Shabbat that I have been waiting for. It is truly welcome. I truly know what Shabbat means now. And I've been looking forward to it. I've been racing toward it. Shabbat. The time we meet with the Creator of the universe, who has set aside this time for us to meet with Him since creation. He set aside this time for us to meet with Him. And it's not for our hurt, on the contrary, it's for our elevation. That we plug back into Him after a week that has been extraordinary, a week that has just taken things out from us. And we need to be replenished. And this is what this Shabbat is about. That God, in His infinite wisdom, He outlines what the Shabbat is. Because God created everything that there was in 6 days. He did everything. But on the seventh day, He hallowed that day. And He commanded that we set it aside. And set it aside means to do no servant work, not to do anything of creative nature. We're to sit here because He has made an appointment with us, to meet with us, to give us what we need in order to go through the next week. And so it's important that we come to this appointment. And in this appointment, He outlined it with Israel, what He did with Israel when He gave them the manna, and He told them to collect manna 5 days. And on the sixth day, what they collected would be enough for the seventh day. It wouldn't spoil. On the other days, if they collected it and they held it over, it would spoil. But on the sixth day, there was something so special about the sixth day, the preparation day, that whatever they collected for the sixth day, it lasted through the seventh and it didn't spoil. And so John is very fond of saying,
The Sabbath day is on God.
yes. God has provided for us. He has provided a sumptuous feast for the body for this seventh day. And He has provided a sumptuous feast for our body, for our spirits. That He, if we would do what He asked, and that is to stop creating, sit at His feet, then He would fill us to overflowing to what we need for the week to come. And so we thank Him that He has done that He has provided for us this sumptuous meal, that we don't have to go out on the seventh day and earn it. We don't have to go out and collect anything. It's already provided. We prepared enough so that when we get ready to eat on tomorrow day, that it will be enough for us, more than enough. But this evening, the table is set. It is set with a sumptuous meal for the body. And from the Torah, we will get the sumptuous meal for our spirits. And we join with the Jewish people all around the world. So this is not an anomaly here at this table. The Jewish people all around the world have set aside this and they have prepared the meal. And they also studying the Torah portion, which is from the Old Testament. And the Torah portion, what they do is divide the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Old Testament. They divide it into portions. And the portion, or Parshah, for this week is Bo. Enter or come in. And it's from Exodus 10:1 through 13:16. And in my Parsha, it's divided in my book, in my Torah, it's divided into, let's see here, 3 parts, I believe. Yes, 3 parts. The first is the last 4 plagues, Exodus 10:1 through 11:10. The second is Pharaoh of Passover and deliverance, Exodus 12, 1 through 42, and the third is addendum to the Passover, Exodus 12, 43 through 13, 16. And it begins, Veyomer Adonai el Moshe, Bo el Pharaoh, Ki ani aki balati, et lebo, ve'et lev avdav, lema'an shati, ati ele bekarvo. Then the Lord said to Moses, Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his courtiers, in order that I may display these my signs among them.
Psalm 139. O Lord, thou hast searched me and know me. Thou knowest my downsitting and my uprising. Thou understandest my thoughts afar off. Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid thine hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain unto it. Whither shall I go from thy spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend unto the heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness should cover me, even the night shall be light unto me. Shall be light about me. Yet the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to thee. For thou hast possessed my reins, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise thee, for I am fearful and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works and works, and that my soul knoweth right well. My sustenance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret, and curiously wrought in the lower part of the earth. Thine eyes did see my sustenance, yet being unperfect, and in thy book all my members were written, which is continuous, were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. How precious also are those thoughts unto thee, O Lord.
Yes.
How great is the sum of them.
Yes.
If I should count them, they are more in number than the sand. When I awake, I am still with thee. Surely thou hast slain the wicked, O God. Depart from me, therefore, ye bloody men. For they speak against thee wickedly, and thine enemies take thy name in vain. Do not hate them, O Lord, that hate thee. And I grieve with those that rise up against thee. I hate them that perfect hatred. I count them mine enemies. Search me, O Lord, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. And see if thou be any wickedness in me, and lead me in the way of everlasting. This is the word of the Lord. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. May your kingdom come, and may your will be done. We give thanks to you, Lord God,
Yes.
for you have brought us to and into your Shabbat.
Yes.
This time and day you created during, you set aside during creation, and rested on this day,
Yes, Lord.
and called men and called your people Israel to rest on this day.
Yes.
And you gave them this command at Mount Sinai.
Thank you, Lord.
After you brought them out of the house
Yes.
of bondage and slavery,
Yes, Lord.
and gave them this command as
Yes.
free men,
Yes.
that they should worship and give thanks to
Yes,
God,
Lord.
and celebrate
Thank
his
you.
great work and power.
Thank you, Lord.
And we, Lord, celebrate
Thank
as well
you.
with our brethren the Jews,
Thank you, Lord.
whom you brought out of Egypt.
Thank you.
And we celebrate as well and give thanks and praise.
Yes.
For Christ Jesus has paid the price for us,
Yes.
that we can be reconciled as well. And in a glad heart we sing and give thanks to God, who has remembered us
Yes.
and has delivered us from the penalty of sin
Yes.
and death eternally.
Thank you, Lord.
And we give thanks, Lord,
Thank
and ask you to draw near to us
you, Lord.
as you have desired to draw us near to you.
Yes, Lord.
And we give thanks, Lord. And we give thanks for the Spirit
Yes, Lord.
and the Son who came
Yes,
for us.
Lord.
And it is in his name we pray.
Yes,
Amen.
Father, our Father and our King. Thank you, Lord. Our Father, our King.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotze lechem min sawar. Blessed art you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives us bread from the earth. Blessed art Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Berei pri agape. Blessed art you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives us the fruit of the vine. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom, Judith.
All right. We continue on our study because we're in the midst of Moses and Pharaoh with this back and forth, trying to free the nation of Israel from Egypt, from the womb of Egypt. And so Moses is in the midst of these plagues that God has sent to trouble Egypt. And so in the first Parsha, remember it begins, it's bow, and it's Exodus 10, 1 through 13, 16. And the first portion is the last 4 plagues. Exodus 10, that's 3?
That's 3.
Exodus 10, 1 through 11, 10. And it reads, then the Lord said to Moses, go to Pharaoh, for I've hardened his heart, and the hearts of his courtiers, in order that I may display these my signs among them, and that you may recount in the hearing of your sons and your sons how I made a mockery of the Egyptian, and how I displayed my signs among them, in order that you may know that I am the Lord. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, that they may worship me. For if you refuse to let my people go, tomorrow I will bring locusts on your territory. They shall cover the surface of the land, so that no one will be able to see the land. They shall devour the surviving remnant that was left to you after the hail, and they shall eat away all your trees that grow in the field. Moreover, they shall fill your palaces and the houses of your courtiers and all of the Egyptians, something that neither your fathers nor your fathers' fathers have seen from the day they appeared on earth to this day. With that he turned and left Pharaoh's presence. Pharaoh's courtiers said to him, how long shall this one be a snare to us? Let the men go to worship the Lord their God. Are you not yet aware that Egypt is lost? So Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh, and he said to them, go, worship the Lord your God, worship the Lord your God. Who are the ones to go? Moses replied, we all go, young and old. We will go with our sons and daughters, our flocks and herds, for we must observe the Lord's festival. But he said to them, the Lord be with you, the same as I mean to let your children go with you. Clearly you are bent on mischief. No, you menfolk go and worship the Lord, since that is what you want. And they were expelled from Pharaoh's presence. Then the Lord said to Moses, hold out your arm over the land of Egypt for the locust, that they may come upon the land of Egypt, and eat up all the grasses in the land wherever the hail has left. So Moses held out his rod over the land of Egypt, and the Lord drove out the east wind over the land that day and all night. And when morning came, the east wind had brought the locusts. Locusts invaded all the land of Egypt and settled within all of the territory of Egypt in a thick mass. Never before had there been so many, nor will there ever be so many again. They had all the land from view, and the land was darkened, and they are up all the grasses of the field, and the fruit of the trees which the hail had left, so that nothing green was left of the tree or grass of the field in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh hurriedly summoned Moses, and Aaron said, I stand guilty before the Lord your God and before you. Forgive my offense just this once, and plead with the Lord your God that he has removed the death from me. So he left Pharaoh's presence and pleaded with the Lord. The Lord caused a shift to a very strong west wind, which lifted the locusts and hurled them into the sea of reeds. Not a single locust remained in all of the territory of Egypt. But the Lord stiffened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go. Then the Lord said to Moses, hold out your arm toward the sky, that there may be darkness upon the land of Egypt, a darkness that can be touched. Moses held out his arm toward the sky, and thick darkness descended upon all the land of Egypt. For 3 days people could not see one another, and for 3 days no one could get up from where he was, but all the Israelites enjoyed light in their dwellings. Pharaoh then summoned Moses and said, go, worship the Lord, only your flocks and your herds shall be left behind, even your children may go with you. But Moses said, you yourself must provide us with sacrifices and burnt offerings to offer up to the Lord our God. Our own livestock too shall go along with us. Not a hoof shall remain behind, for we must select from it for the worship of the Lord our God, and we shall not know with what we are to worship the Lord until we arrive there. But the Lord stiffened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not consent to let them go. Pharaoh said to him, begone from me. Take care not to see me again, for the moment you look upon my face, you shall die. And Moses replied, you have spoken rightly. I shall not see your face again. And the Lord said to Moses, I will bring but one more plague upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. After that, he shall let you go from here. Indeed, when he lets you go, he will drive you out of here, one and all. Tell the people to go borrow, each man from his neighbor, and each woman from hers, objects of silver and gold. The Lord disposed the Egyptians favorably toward the people. Moreover, Moses himself was much esteemed as the land of Egypt among Pharaoh's courtiers and among the people. Moses said, thus saith the Lord, toward midnight I will go forth among the Egyptians, and every firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on his throne, to the firstborn of the slave girl who is behind the millstone, and all the firstborn of the cattle. And there shall be a loud cry in all of the land of Egypt, such as has never been or will ever be again. But not a dog shall snarl at any of the Israelites, at man or beast, in order that you may know that the Lord makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. Then all these courtiers of yours shall come down to me, and bow low to me, saying, depart you, and all the people who follow you. After that I will depart. And he left Pharaoh's presence in hot anger. Now the Lord had said to Moses, Pharaoh will not heed you, in order that my marvels may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. Moses and Aaron had performed all these marvels before Pharaoh. The Lord had stiffened the heart of Pharaoh, so that he would not let the Israelites go from his land. John?
This I guess this is a continuation of the last of the plagues from last week. This is the last three: the locust, darkness, and the death of the firstborn. Now, the idea is one. Why so many plagues? Why wouldn't one do? And that should be the end of it. Or if the first 9 didn't work, why not just have the death of the firstborn be the one and only one? Or come up with some kind of a disease to kill them all off, kill off all the Egyptians, and they can just walk out. But the idea of 10 plagues is primarily for the people in the future, the critics in the future, where if there were just one incident, they would say, well, perhaps it was just a natural disaster. All the Egyptians got sick and died. Said, oh, God didn't bring them out, just a natural disaster. Or it could have been just coincidence. So he had to do the 10th plague, maybe even more, but he stopped at 10. So the critics and the skeptic wouldn't try and explain it away. It was just too many of them to be a coincidence. And I think that's why there was 10. Now, why was Pharaoh so stubborn? In some cases, God hardened his heart. But okay, so God hardened your heart, you can still change your mind. You should be able to override that. But there was one other thing in play too. I'm going to maybe exaggerate a little bit when I say everyone knew that Pharaoh was in the wrong, because the advisor said, no, change your mind, let the people go, God is in it, you're not going to win. But Pharaoh was a leader, and he was a strong leader, and one thing a leader cannot show is weakness. So if he would let them go, he would show weakness. And if he let them go, then what else is next? His leadership would be in jeopardy, so he really couldn't let them go. He said sometimes he'll let them go, but he changed his mind. So he was doing a lot of back and forth here. But a leader can't do things like that, and because he can't show weakness. As I said before, his people said, let him go. Now, this last plague I'll talk about was the death of the firstborn. This one's kind of unique in a sense that there was some type of preparation. Moses told them what was going to happen in advance. And also, this is the only plague that's repeated even to this day as remembrance from coming out of Egypt. So this has some historic ramification. I guess if you don't celebrate the Passover, then you probably don't go back as far as your Jewish roots don't go back that far. But this is this goes back to Egypt and the roots of Judaism and history of the Jews. So this is the only plague that's still practiced on a regular basis, and it's called Passover. They'll talk about it a little bit more. There's one of the teachers brought out something that was pretty subtle, and I think it's kind of interesting. And it's in, actually it was repeated once before. At the burning bush, God told Moses that the Jews would ask for silver and gold, and this one says jewels and silver and jewels of gold from their neighbors when they left Egypt. But he repeats the same promise, but he adds a little caveat. And the caveat here is that God would do something, and the Lord will give the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Now, some translate that grace, but grace, I think, is favor.
Right.
And that's pretty interesting. So what is this all about? And one of the teachers says this is a kind of a divine judgment upon, well, first of all, why would the Egyptians willingly consent to giving the Jews gold and silver under normal circumstances? Well, under normal circumstances, they wouldn't. You know, I don't think the Jews would think it would be possible, and the Egyptians wouldn't do it. So there was a kind of a divine justice that's taking place here, where God said the Jews deserve this gold and silver, and he imposed what I call a divine justice, divine justice, I call it that. They were physically leaving leaving Egypt, but they had to be more than just physically leaving. They had to, I think I mentioned spiritually, spiritual closure, or some mentioned emotional closure of coming out. They have been wronged, they've been enslaved, they've been mistreated. So they need some type of justice given to them. And this is what this favor or grace means. It's since they suffered, and why are they doing it? Because they suffered for so many years. And this suffering represents a type of closure.
Right.
And it's very interesting. It's a sense of a divine justice that is being imposed upon the Egyptians by God, and they may not even know it. And this teacher counts this as probably one of the greatest miracles of all, because you're doing the will of God, and you don't even know it. One comment I made, or the teacher wrote, was that this grace comes when we deserve it the most, or was it a divine reason, or maybe even both. But the Egyptians did consent to giving them the gold and silver. So would the Jews have been happy just to be leaving? Probably. Hey, to be out of slavery. But as I said, it would be some type of closure for them for leaving, and maybe spiritually or emotionally, even while they physically left. So it's kind of interesting what this type of grace that passage is talking about. Another thing to point out, now they did mention the locust, and the locust just came by and they just ate up everything. Also, or whatever remained from the hail. With the darkness, no one could go anywhere. They were absolutely helpless. And then there was the death of the firstborn. It was that time of grief. But this is devastating here. Now, I did call this, or the teacher called it, this grace was the subtle miracle, wherein you were subjected to this will of God, to this miracle, and you didn't even know it.
Yes.
Didn't even realize it.
Yes.
And it happened. Right. Now, I said, what was it? Oh, and there's something new. I did mention this was the start of the Passover. grace was part of a divine justice for wrongs that were done to the Jews. And in a sense, this is how God imposes divine justice. It's pretty interesting, but this is the way he designed it. I said emotional exodus is a form of closure as well as the physical exodus, and the Egyptians had to provide it. They had to provide it. It could have come from God, but it had to have been provided by the Jews. It had to have been provided by the Egyptians. And I have one more part. I think I mentioned everything. This last plague was different than all the others.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, very good. The second part is entitled Passover and Deliverance. And that's in Exodus 12, 1 through 42. And it reads, The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, This month shall mark for you the beginning of the month. It shall be the first of the months of a year for you. Speak to the whole community of Israel and say that on the 10th of this month, each of them shall take a lamb to a family and a lamb to a household. But if the household is too small for a lamb, then let him share one with a neighbor closest to his household. In the number of persons, you shall apportion the lamb according to what each person should eat. Your lamb shall be without blemish. A yearling male, you may take it from the sheep or from the goats. You shall keep watch over it until the 14th day of the month, and all the aggregate community of the Israelites shall slaughter it at twilight. They shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of houses in which they are to eat it. They shall eat the flesh that same night. They shall eat it roasted over the fire with unleavened bread and with bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or cooked in any way with water, but roasted, head, legs, and entrails over the fire. You shall not leave any of it over until morning. If any of it is left until morning, you shall burn it. This is how you shall eat it. Your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it hurriedly. It is a Passover offering to the Lord. For that night I will go through the land of Egypt, and strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and I will mete out punishments to all the gods of Egypt. I, the Lord, both man and beast, I will mete out punishment to all the gods of Egypt. I, the Lord, I, the Lord, and the blood on the houses in which you dwell shall be a sign for you. When I see that blood, I will pass over you, so that no plague will destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day be to you one of the remembrance. You shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord throughout the ages. You shall celebrate it as an institution for all time. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the very first day you shall remove the leaven from your houses. For whoever eats leavened bread from the first day to the 7th day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. On the first day you shall hold a sacred convocation. On the 7th day, a sacred convocation. No work at all shall be done on them, only what every person is to eat. That alone may be prepared for you. You shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for on this very day I brought you out of your ranks, out of the land of Egypt. You shall observe this day throughout the ages as an institution for all time. And the first month, from the 14th day of the month of evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. No leaven shall be found in your houses for 7 days, for whoever eats what is leavened, that person shall be cut off from the assembly of Israel. Whether he is a stranger or a citizen of the country, you shall eat nothing leavened in all your settlements. You shall eat unleavened bread. Moses then summoned all the elders of Israel and said to them, Go, pick out lambs for your families and slaughter the Passover offering. Take a bunch of hyssop, dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and apply some of the blood that is in the basin to the lintel and to the 2 doorposts. None of you shall go outside the door of his house until morning. For when the Lord goes through to smite the Egyptians, he will see the blood on the lintel and the 2 doorposts, and the Lord will pass over the door and not let the destroyer enter and smite your home. You shall observe this as an institution for all time, for you and for your descendants. And when you enter the land which the Lord will give you, as he has promised, you shall observe this rite. And when your children ask you, what do you mean by this rite? You shall say, it is a Passover sacrifice to the Lord, because he passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt when he smote the Egyptians but saved our houses. The Lord then bowed low in homage, and the Israelites went and did so, just as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. In the middle of the night, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. From the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on the throne to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the cattle. And Pharaoh arose in the night with all his courtiers and all the Egyptians, because there was a loud cry in Egypt, for there was no house where there was not someone dead. He summoned Moses and Aaron in the night and said, Up, depart from among my people, you and the Israelites with you. Go worship the Lord as you said. Take also your flocks and your herds as you said, and be gone, and may you bring a blessing upon me also. The Egyptians urged the people on to make them leave in haste, for they said, We shall be all dead. So the Lord took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading bowls wrapped in their cloaks upon their shoulders. The Israelites had done Moses' bidding and borrowed from the Egyptians objects of silver and gold and clothing. And the Lord had disposed the Egyptians favorably toward the people, and they let them have their requests. Thus they stripped the Egyptians. The Israelites journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot, aside from the children. Moreover, a mixed multitude went up with them, and very much livestock, both flocks and herds. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough that they had taken out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, since they had been driven out of Egypt and could not delay, nor had they prepared any provisions for themselves. The length of time that the Israelites lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of 430th year, to the very day, all the ranks of the Lord departed from the land of Egypt. That was for the Lord a night of vigil, to bring them out of the land of Egypt. That same night is the Lord's, one of vigil for all the children of Israel throughout the ages. John?
Okay. This is the first Passover. It does mention it was a memorial, but this was the first, so this wasn't really a memorial. Remembering, this was the initial one.
Mm-hmm.
Also set up here was the calendar, and the Jewish calendar, and that's what was instituted here.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, that's about all I have to say for this one.
About this is very momentous, though, that God is delivering them. And the way, again, the blood is on the lintel. That's how he distinguishes the holy from the profane. The blood is on the lintel.
One teacher mentioned about the destroyer will not come in, and does that destroy you on the inside, your faith? They talked about God coming in, also the destroyer. But if you got the blood on the lintel, then you should be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But there was, what's that, verse 22? For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptian, and when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two doorposts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your house to smite you. So who is that destroyer? Since God would be the one doing it, and some tend to think that that would be some like self-doubt or fear, but it's hard to pin that one down.
But God is, this is it. This is the last plague. The death of the firstborn. This is it.
No.
And God is doing what Pharaoh did by killing the male children. God turned it around on him, I think.
Somewhat, but he wanted all of them, not just the
Not just the male.
not just the first one. Also here, I forgot. Okay, I forgot my point. Not just the firstborn male, but any that he wanted to kill.
All of them.
All of them he wanted to kill.
All
and
of them.
And he changed that decree.
Right.
Yeah. Now here, it's funny because Pharaoh calls Moses in the middle of the night and says, "Get out of here." So now he's changed his mind again. But we'll know later on that he's going to change it once more. So is he overriding his God pressuring him to not let them go and decide, well, I'm going to let them go. But here, I don't know if he's exercising his own free will or being pressured, but either way, he decides to let them go.
Yes.
Changes his mind later, but here he does say you can go.
A momentous occasion. And again, it's the foretelling of the Messiah. That the blood, that Messiah's blood will cleanse us from our sin. That us being identified with the blood of Messiah, the ultimate enemy will pass over us. We will not be subjected to eternal damnation if we accept the sacrifice of Yeshua. The third part is addenda to the Passover observance, Exodus 12:43 through 13:16. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "This is the law of the Passover offering. No foreigner shall eat of it, but any slave a man has brought may eat of it once he has been circumcised. A resident hireling shall not eat of it. It shall be eaten in one house, and you shall not take any of the flesh outside the house, nor shall you break a bone of it. The whole assembly of Israel shall offer it. If a stranger who dwells with you would offer the Passover to the Lord, all the males must be circumcised. Then he shall be admitted to offer it. He shall then be as a citizen of the country, but no uncircumcised person may eat of it. There shall be one law for the citizen and for the stranger who dwelleth with you." And for all the Israelites did so, as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. That very day the Lord freed the Israelites from the land of Egypt, troop by troop. The Lord spoke further to Moses, saying, Consecrate to me every firstborn man and beast. The first issue of every womb among the Israelites is mine. And Moses said to the people, Remember this day in which you went free from Egypt, the house of bondage, how the Lord freed you from it with a mighty hand. No leavened bread shall be eaten. You go free on this day in the month of Abib. So when the Lord has brought you into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Amorites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, and you shall observe in this month the following practice. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there shall be a festival of the Lord. Throughout the 7 days unleavened bread shall be eaten. No leavened bread shall be found with you, and no leaven shall be found in all your territory. And you shall explain to your son on that day, It is because of what the Lord did for me when I went free from Egypt. And this shall serve you as a sign on your hand and as a reminder on your forehead, in order that the teachings of the Lord may be in your mouth, that with a mighty hand the Lord freed you from Egypt. And you will keep this institution at a set time for you year to year. And when the Lord had brought you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and to your fathers, and has given it to you, you shall set apart for the Lord every first issue of the womb, every male firstling, that your cattle drop shall be the Lord's. But every firstling ass you shall redeem with a sheep. If you do not redeem it, you must break its neck. You shall redeem every firstborn male among your children. And when in time to come your son asks you, saying, What does this mean? You shall say to him, It was with a mighty hand that the Lord brought us out from Egypt, the house of bondage. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord slew every firstborn in the land of Egypt, the firstborn both of men and beasts. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord every first male issue of the womb, but redeem every firstborn among my sons. And so it shall be as a sign among your hand, and as a symbol on your forehead, that with a mighty hand the Lord freed us from Egypt.
The freeing was to the reason there were so many plagues is so God could show his great power. So
Yes.
no one could say
Yes.
it was just a natural disaster.
Exactly.
Coincidence. Also, this is setting up the firstborn. This at the beginning was to be for God. Firstborn sons. They were to be in service for God, but later on that got changed to the Levites. But this is how it initially started. There was some buying back of certain animals. The children you had to redeem. Animals, if you didn't redeem them, the neck was broken. But this is setting up the instituting the Passover celebration or Passover remembrance, and why it's being done. But to show the great power of God.
Yes.
Now, some say, well, God had to defeat the 10 gods of Egypt, but I imagine Egypt had more than 10 gods, and they say, well, God had to defeat them. But I think it's saying here more that he is displaying his great power, and had Pharaoh agreed at the beginning, none of that would have happened. And they would have gone, and the Egyptian gods would have been intact. They wouldn't have been defeated. But the problem is the critics would have had a field day. So God had to stretch out his hand. Pharaoh was free to change his mind, to act with, but he did not. And this is the outcome of it. we have the Passover, we celebrate it even until today.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's all I have.
Very good. The next Parsha is, next week is Shabbat, Exodus 13:17 through 17:16. And my Torah is divided into four portions. Beshalach, rescue at sea, Exodus 13:17 through 14:31. Shirah, the song at sea, Exodus 15:1 through 21. The third in the wilderness, Exodus 15:22 through 16:36. And the fourth part is foes and friends, Exodus 17:1 through 17:16. And it begins, Ve'yehi beshlach paro et ha'am ve'lo nacham Elohim derek eretz Philistim ki karov hu ki amar Elohim pain Yenacham ha'am bar otam milchama vishavu mitzra'ima. Now, when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although it was nearer. For God say the people may have a change of heart when they see war and return to Egypt. So that's our Parsha for this coming week. We have done as the Lord has commanded. We have set aside this day and we have hollowed it out. And we're not going out to earn a living because God has provided richly for us that we can sit at his feet and learn from him and also be replenished, because this has been definitely a week that has drained, but God is able to replenish us, and I just thank him.
Amen.
Have you decided on the song?
No, I didn't sing the song, I thought.
I think we shall sing, let's do, I don't know if you have the song, but we'll just sing a verse of it. I think we'll do Higher Ground again. I'm pressing on the upward way, new heights I'm gaining every day, still praying as I'm upward bound, Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by heaven's throne on tableland, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. We thank God for what he has done for us this past week. We thank God for what he's going to do for us in the rest of this evening and for the day to come where he will replenish us, where we have been depleted of all what he planted in us last week, last Shabbat. So may he plant again into us what we have to give out, because we're not meant to be a light hid under a bushel. On the contrary, we're to be a light that's brightly beaming, so the world can see what God has in mind for them. And so we thank God that he is using us mightily. So mighty he is using us. And so we thank him for this time that we will have together. So we say,
Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov.
thank you. The whole world is waiting.
Sing the song of Sabbath. The whole world is waiting. Sing the song of Shabbat. The whole world is waiting. Sing the song of Shabbat. The whole world is waiting.
sing the song of Shabbat. I'm also waiting to sing the song of. I'm also waiting to sing the song of Shabbat.